afternoon, my name is Rafa Corbin. My student ID number is 2307903, and today I'll be talking to you on how COVID-19 has affected physiotherapy in both the private sectors and in the NHS. Now, COVID has massively impacted the world society and the way how we live and work today. In the early stages of the pandemic, hospitals required all skill sets within the medical field to respond and be on the front lines, as the reality of the virus and the effects of COVID were becoming more apparent. There are a number of physios in hospitals that would have to work on different wards during this time. Some of them would go into the ICU, which is the intensive care unit, where some of the patients there were critical. They were the critical care patients, and these were the type of patients that were vulnerable and at high risk of death during COVID. During this time, a lot of physios would be doing things that they weren't actually used to. They weren't used to this type of work. However, they assisted the best that they could. Now, when we look at physio as a whole, we have different areas. We've got musculoskeletal physiotherapists, we have respiratory physiotherapists, sports physiotherapists, pediatric physiotherapists, cardiovascular physiotherapists. And the one thing that all these physiotherapists have in common is that they do their clients with one-to-one meetings, and they do their assessing and confirmations through physical touch. Mainly the musculoskeletal physiotherapists, they'll do their assessments and rehabilitation through physical touch and actually being in and around the client/patient. Now, during this time of COVID, because there was the lockdown rules required people to stay at home, be only with their families, and to constantly distance themselves from anyone else that wasn't really their family. The way how physiotherapy kind of changed as a whole. Now, when we look at the private sectors, the private practitioners, when they had their own way of doing their physiotherapy, a lot of the clients didn't want to come in because they were scared of the way how other people may have isolated. Also, they wanted to follow the guidelines and lockdown rules. However, with this occurring, when it comes to the physiotherapists, they weren't able to really do their job as they would normally do it. A lot of the times they'd have to do video calls with Microsoft Teams or Zoom calls, and some of them depending on their clientele, if their clientele were older patients, and if they were lucky enough to understand how technology works in today's age, they would have to either do WhatsApp calls. Some of them would have to do telephone calls to actually talk to their clients and find out what the problem is and give them basic rehabilitation through the phone to the best that they can, and hope that the client actually follows through with the rehabilitation. Now, when COVID started to ease up during the later years of 2021 and 2022, practices started to open up again, and with this, a lot of places had to learn new ways and had to have new strategies built in place. For example, there was the personal protective equipment where physios, nurses, doctors would have to wear a mask, gloves, or an apron to cover themselves as protective equipment. Like I said before, they did video calls to ease their way back into coming face to face again. So some people had the choice whether they would do the video calls or meet in person. There was also more telecare, where there was once the physiotherapist would give an assessment and a rehab, they would follow up again with a telephone call just to see if everything's good and if they've actually done the rehabilitation. Now, with these strategies led to the reopening of practices over the years of COVID. And with this, there was a wide recognition of the importance of physiotherapy in the rehabilitation of re-enabling patients to function in society, such as walking again, sitting up straight, being able to breathe properly. Because during the time where COVID was at its peak, when people were put on ventilations, if you're on a ventilation for a long period of time, it kind of in its own way resets the body, where you'd need to be able to learn again how to walk and how to sit up and how to basically fend for yourself. And that is my video application on how COVID-19 has affected physiotherapy.